What's up, everybody? Big Cop Diesel coming at you, and I wanted to talk today again about security guards who are either untrained or very poorly trained. And I'm going to reference a story that happened in Detroit about a month ago, and there was a security guard who was working at a local manufacturing plant who shot and killed an employee of that plant, so an employee of the client. The dispute happened, I guess, over a food delivery. I guess there was a situation where an employee at this plant had someone bring him some food, and there was some kind of an altercation where the security guard told the employee that the person who brought the food couldn't come back to the site. There's not a whole lot of details here, so guys, I'm going strictly off of the report from WXYZ in Detroit. So again, basing my observation off of the information from this report, knowing full well that there's not a lot of context here and definitely not a lot of details. But I want to highlight the fact that this is just yet another story. Unfortunately, there's dozens and dozens of these stories where you have security guards who have gotten themselves in trouble due to improper use of force. So this points to a larger problem of security guards either being untrained altogether or receiving minimal training or just being poorly trained all around. Now, another part to that layer is the vetting process. So a couple questions come to mind for me as a security professional and as a former operations manager for a large security company. So let's start with the vetting process first and foremost. Is pretty much anybody can be a security guard in Michigan. You just have to be 21 years old and have no felonies. That's pretty much it. And then not much more than that to become an armed security guard. So 21 years old, no felonies, and have a CPL. Usually the security companies may run you through some sort of online training, some video-based training, where you have to watch videos on things like patrolling, report writing. There should be some de-escalation type training there. And de-escalation training, I think, is the most important out of all of the things that can be offered to security guards. De-escalation training is huge because at the end of the day, the use of force, whether you're a security guard, a police officer, what have you, the use of force is always the last resort. And if you have had to resort to the use of force, that means that communication is broken down. Now, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of situations where it's not tactically sound to de-escalate, and there's a whole lot of layers to that. So, first of all, it's got to be tactically sound, meaning that you're not in imminent danger of death or serious physical injury. You're not expected to try to de-escalate someone who is pointing a firearm at you, for instance. But the other part of that is if you do have the time to de-escalate, you should do that. Again, if the person can be de-escalated, the person has to, you have to be able to make contact with this person. And what I mean by contact doesn't mean touch them. That just means being able to talk to them and for them to hear and understand what you're saying. So there's a couple of things that will prevent a person from being able to be contacted if they are under the influence of drugs, if they are under the influence of alcohol, or if they are suffering some type of a mental breakdown. Those three things will prevent you from being able to make contact with somebody. If they're having a mental breakdown, they may not even be dealing in reality. So if they're not dealing with reality, how in the world would you be able to make contact with them? It's just not possible, right? But going back to this situation here, this appeared to be a situation where the security guards and the person who passed away got into some kind of argument. So my question as somebody who carries a gun for a living, The question in my mind is, okay, what is it that even made the security guard feel like he needed to access his firearm? Did the person who passed away present a deadly threat? Meaning, did he produce a firearm? Did he attempt to run the security guard over with a car? Did he, threaten him with a knife? What was the situation that made the security guard feel that he needed to access his firearm? And based on the reports from the story here, there's no indication that the person who passed away presented any sort of a deadly threat. So now the next question goes, okay, so you have a guy who we don't know, guy being the security guard, we have a guy who we don't know what his background is, we don't know what kind of training that this person may have received, and now we have a situation where he used deadly force and killed someone. So no matter what way you look at this, unless that security guard can articulate that he was in fear of death or great serious bodily harm to himself or another innocent person, he's toast. Number one, I can't think of anybody who would defend him. Where do you go with that? So guys, listen, and I want to talk about something else that really wasn't part of this video, but I'm going to bring it up now because it just came to mind. Just because someone has a CPL does not mean that they are able to work in a security capacity. Okay, I hate to say it, but we all know what happens is that not everybody walking around with a CPL went through an 8-hour class. I hate to say it because I'm a firearms instructor as well, but you got people out there who are selling certificates, meaning for the right amount of money, you go to this person and say, hey, I need a CPL certificate, a concealed carry certificate. You pay the money, they just give you the certificate and you're on your own. And there's a whole lot of problems with that. The other problem with this is you have security companies who have really very low standards when they hire people. And I go on like Indeed every day to look at security jobs for two reasons. I want to see if there's something I might want to get my hands on contract-wise, but I also want to see what they're putting on there for their requirements. And usually you'll see something that says armed security guards must have a CPL and 1 year experience customer service. Now, they'll go out and they'll also say must have a combat arms MOS in the military or former law enforcement. But if you're looking at a job posting where they want to pay you $13 an hour and yet they're requiring somebody to have a combat MOS, I mean, that's just a joke. That's a whole nother video there. But what you got is you got guys that really have no experience with a firearm other than they have their CPL. And if you have 1 year customer service experience, what does that mean? That means I could be a door greeter at Walmart for 1 year because that's customer service. Or I could work at a call center where I'm calling people about freaking windows. That's customer service. So I'm working at this call center for a year. I decide I want to get a CPL. I go get a CPL, whether I do it the right way, pay the money, go through the 8-hour course and everything, or pay somebody to just give me a certificate. But either way, I have this CPL, and now I go get a job as an armed security guard that has so many levels to it, but I'm just a body. So the problem is with some of these security companies too. They just want to get bodies to fill spots so they can get contracts. Well, there's a huge problem with this whole scenario, and the huge problem is called liability. Okay, in this scenario, somebody lost their life, so his family's destroyed forever. The security guard who took his life is basically lost his life because he's going to rot in prison, and destroyed his family's life. So you got two families that are destroyed all because of a situation that got out of hand. Now, as a security guard, I've been in plenty of situations where people are upset. You're dealing with emotions, no matter what's going on. no matter what the situation is, you have people who are upset. And as the professional, I have to maintain my bearing, my what we call in military bearing, meaning I have to remain professional. The person may be calling me names, they may be upset with me, but I have to understand and remember that it's not personal. I don't know this person and they don't know me. I represent the thing that they are mad about, whether it's a venue where I'm telling them, hey, you have to leave the premises, or if it's another venue where I have to search them for them to come onto the premises, or whatever the situation is. They don't know me, so they're not mad at me, but I'm a representation, I'm a visual representation of the client and what the client's will is. So I have to maintain that professionalism, knowing that this person is not really mad at me. Now, does that mean the person could be mad? They could be, and they could start to get personal and call me names and, say different things. But again, I have to stay above that and remain professional, okay? I can't let somebody get me upset, all right? Because once I've done that, it's game over. Especially if you're a security professional and you are carrying a firearm. If you've been through a concealed carry class, you have to understand, and you should have understood by the time you got done with that class, that there's going to be an extra emphasis placed on you and your actions simply because you're carrying a firearm. If you're not carrying a firearm, there's still a professionalism, right, of being a security guard, of wearing someone's uniform and providing a service. But whether you are working as a security guard or you're just on the street, in either situation, if something happens, the law is going to place special emphasis on you, because if you do anything unprofessional and albeit illegal, it's always going to fall back on you should have known better, okay? I cannot stress enough, if you're watching this video right now and you are a security guard, especially if you're an armed security guard, ask yourself, have you received any training? And when I say training, I'm not talking about your CPL class. A CPL class is only a safety class. That is it, nothing more. When you go through that CPL class, you are demonstrating to that instructor that you can safely handle a firearm. You're also going to get some training on the law, realizing that no CPL instructor, well, I shouldn't say no, but most firearms instructors are not lawyers. There are some that are. I have a buddy in Indiana who is a lawyer and also a firearms instructor. But most CPL instructors in Michigan are not lawyers. And even then, as a lawyer, there's so many different layers to every situation. No two situations are alike. So from a legal aspect, we can give you the broad strokes. We can tell you what the law says. We can put you through some scenarios just to get the mind, just to get the juices flowing, to try to train you on how you should think, but not to give you the black and white answer for every situation, because again, no two situations are the same. So if you are a security guard and you went through a CPL class, you had a very basic instruction on how the law works with CPLs, and you had a very basic safety class. That does not in any way prepare you to deal with all of the situations that you might come across while working as an armed security guard. Because once you've taken that contract or you've taken that job, you have automatically placed yourself into a position of authority over other people. Now, there's benefits to that and there's risks to that. Just like anything else in life, the higher the benefit is, in this case, as a security guard, the benefit is going to be money, maybe a good job, maybe a great location, a great site, maybe with some perks, but also comes that higher level of responsibility, right? And I hate to do this, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to quote Stan Lee, who actually quoted Voltaire, but that quote is, with great power comes great responsibility. And if you don't grasp that, if that doesn't make sense to you, do not go to work tomorrow as an armed security guard. Hang it up and go do something different. In fact, I would suggest that you don't even carry a gun at all until you've gotten more training. So what's this other training that I'm talking about? I'm talking about more in-depth training on the legalities of carrying a gun, number one, the legalities of using force. Where does your authority come from? Doesn't it come out of thin air, right? This stuff is not made up. There's a source for all of this. You need to understand that, right? Use of force. What is use of force? Do you know what's on the low end of the scale and what's on the high end of the scale and everything in between? Do you know what you can and cannot do when we're talking about use of force? Because what you can do in response to a deadly force situation is very different than what you can do in response to a non-deadly force situation. And there's a bunch of layers in that. So if you don't have a deep understanding of that, you should not go to work tomorrow as a security guard. Hang it up, okay? This training that I'm referring to also has to do with if you do have to go hands-on with someone, how do you do that? Are we talking about a barroom brawl? Can you tackle someone football style like you're a linebacker? Can you use a chokehold on someone? If you don't know the answers to those questions, don't go to work tomorrow as a security guard. Hang it up, okay? The other thing is that cool gear that you have and all those doodads and gadgets that you have on your uniform and on your vest, are you allowed to have that stuff? Is that stuff legal? First of all, are you legally able to carry the stuff that's on your vest? Have you trained with the stuff that's on your vest or on your belt? I can look at a security guard in 5 seconds. I can tell whether that security guard is trained simply by the way their gear is set up. Doesn't take me 5 seconds. All right. And then the firearms portion. We're going to go back to the firearms portion. How much training have you had on the firearm? Did you go to the range and shoot 200 rounds of ammo? And if you did, were you just popping off rounds? Did you do any drills? What kind of drills did you do? If you're asking yourself, what is a firearm drill? Do not go to work tomorrow as a security guard. As a matter of fact, don't even carry your gun anywhere, okay? Everything that you do as a security professional, just like any other profession, has to have a purpose. You have to know the origin, you have to know the reason behind it, and you have to know what's the purpose. Everything you do should have a purpose. I'm going to ask you another question as a security professional. Do you carry a notebook and a pen? I cannot tell you how many times I've run into security guards and I'll ask them, hey, do you have a notebook and pen? 99 out of 100 times the answer is no. So if you witness a crime, are you going to be able to remember all of the details? Because you're going to have to give a report somewhere. You may even have to go to court 2 years down the road. So these are all things that you need to think about. If you're a security professional, you're watching this and light bulbs are starting to go off in your head because the things I'm asking you, you've either never heard of it or never thought of it because nobody said anything to you. You need to get a hold of me. You need to call me. You need to go through my security class. I offer an 8-hour security class where I cover all of the things that I just talked about. Now, the question is, are you going to invest in your profession? Are you going to pay the money to get the knowledge to make you better? Because I'm going to tell you something right now, guys. 99% of you are going to go to work day in and day out at your security job, and nothing's going to happen. Every day is going to be the same. It's going to be like Groundhog Day. You're going to park in the same spot. You're going to walk in the same door. You're going to say hi to the same people. And you're going to do the same rounds and the same gig day in and day out, maybe for years at a time, and nothing happens. And in your mind, you say to yourself, well, nothing ever happens here. So by saying that, you're implying that nothing ever will. But when you think about any situation, like at this plant that I'm talking about, I'm sure everybody there thought nothing would happen, including the guy that got killed and the guy that shot him, right? So invest in yourself, because you're going to spend money one way or the other. You're either going to spend money with somebody like me to get the skills and the knowledge that you need to make yourself a better security professional, or you're going to be paying with time, because when you do something stupid, you're going to go to jail, and or money, because you're going to get sued. And speaking of lawsuits, something I want you to think about as well, because I guarantee you haven't thought of this. If you're working a security job and you get sued for your official actions, let's say that you did something on the job, and we'll just, for sake of argument, we'll say that what you did was legal and it was within policy. Yet, the person that you've had to deal with is going to turn around and sue you. Who covers the cost of that? Does the security company cover the cost of you having a lawyer and paying out potential damages? Does the client cover the cost of that? The client being the company or entity that hired the security company that you're working for. Do they pay your legal bills? Or your civil, if you're charged or go to court because you're sued civilly, do they pay for it? I'm going to let you in on a little secret. No, you're on your own. So the question is, do you have professional liability insurance to cover your hiney if something goes sideways? So hopefully the things I've talked about has got you thinking and got you asking questions. Next time you go to work and you think of a situation, go to your site and sit on your site, and I want you to start playing war games. Stop watching action movies on your phone. Stop playing action video games, and just sit at your site and say, man, I'm sitting in the lobby of this office building, or I'm sitting in the parking lot of this office building. What would I do if somebody came in here with a gun and started shooting? What are my options? What am I trained to do? How would I deal with that? Do you have any medical training? Would you be able to render medical first aid to yourself or someone else if you were to get shot, or someone else were to get shot or injured in some way? You cannot leave this stuff to chance, because when shit hits the fan, you are not going to rise to the occasion. Promise you. You're going to sink to your highest level of training. And if your highest level of training is a safety class for that pistol that you have on your side that you probably didn't clean and probably couldn't take apart to save your life, what are you going to do? So hopefully I've ruffled some feathers. Hopefully I got you thinking. I love the security field. I've been doing this security stuff since I was a teenager. My very first job was a security job. No, my second job, sorry. My second job right before I went in the Army. I've been doing security most of my adult life. I love the security field. But we got to do better, guys. And all it takes is somebody like that to make us all look bad. All right, everybody. I hope you learned something from this. If you did, give it a like. Please subscribe, because I'll be making more videos. My goal here is to make the security profession more respected, more professional. And I have a group called Southeast Security Professionals. And if that's a group that you think you want to be in, check it out on Facebook, and we'll get you set up. All right, everybody. Stay safe out there.